Welcome to ModiMakes.
It's time. I'm throwing my hat in the ring. Well, headband, I guess. I didn't want to have to do this, but you've left me no choice. You've had it too good for too long, Drawfee. You thought just because you're probably my favorite channel on YouTube and all of you seem incredibly chill, cool, and nice that I wouldn't come after you? Well, you have no power here. What's good, everybody? My name is Modi. This is ModiMakes, and today I'm getting in on the YouTube beef because I'm bored and this is like my 136th? 5th? Something like that video. And I've only ever had like 5 ideas in my life, so I'm grasping at straws here, man. I've been working on these cyano-type shirt designs recently, which has really reignited my passion for streetwear design. And I'm feeling pretty confident because I've already sold every single cyano-type shirt I've printed, which basically makes me a god of merch print design. No need to worry about the fact that I've only printed 8 of them. That's not important. Just look at the percentages. Now that looks nice. I've noticed a trend with YouTube channels that a lot of them just sort of hawk cheap merch in the hopes that their fan base is going to be loyal enough to purchase it anyways, because we all know that liking a YouTube channel is a personality trait. And I've heard other creators talk about this before, like Mini Minute Man comes to mind. And I think he actually does really well with his limited unique item drops for specific videos. But Drawfee, guys, y'all are incredibly talented, funny, charismatic artists who are literally digital illustrators for a living. And a lot of your merch is actually pretty awesome. But the clothing design, guys, I mean, what is going on here? Julia even went to fashion school, y'all. And she's made so many amazing poster designs and other graphic design type images that would be amazing to put on shirts and hoodies and such. And all of y'all literally come up with amazing IP multiple times a week that could be turned into beautiful clothing designs. So what is going on here? By the way, if it wasn't already clear, I'm a huge fan. This is all in jest, and I'm not trying to actually insult anybody here. Everyone has their own style and equally valid opinion on fashion. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm sure some people are like, what the heck is up with that headband, man? Well, I like it, so just deal with it, all right? I'm eccentric. I'm an artist. Anyway, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna help y'all out for my sake and yours. I wanna rock your merch, guys, and I know y'all are on that 2 million subscriber creep. So let me be your walking billboard. But you gotta toss me a bone and at least give me something I wanna wear in exchange. But I guess I gotta do everything myself. And if by some miracle any of y'all actually see this video, then feel free to reach out to me and I will give you all these designs free of charge, and you don't even have to credit me for them. I've got an email and my Insta linked in the description of every video, so take your pick. But let's get into it and see if I can't convince y'all of what I'm talking about. Before I get started expertly shredding y'all, I do have to give credit where credit is due. The Delete Your Art beanie is sick. I have no notes about it. The only reason I haven't bought one yet is because I already have a condom top beanie that's the same color and style, and it'd be redundant. But y'all did get one right. That's it. That's the whole chapter. We're zooming along today, boys. Alright, now let's get into it and start doing the Lord's work here. Let me just grab my laptop real quick. Why you watching me grab my stuff? I don't trust you. Alright, let's do a little review here. Let's check out some of your guys' wares. I do agree that I think it's a little goofy how far my ears get pushed out when I wear these, but I still like them, just deal with it. Now this one, oh, you made them so cute. Karina, I gotta be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the shirt design, but damn, you drew that Jacob horse so damn cute. He's my perfect little boy. But the shirt still needs work, so we're taking an axe to this thing. Now, like I said, I know everyone has their own taste, and this one just might not be for me. And Drawfee has a brand image to uphold, keeping things sorta cute, goofy, and cartoony. So I'm gonna try to design something in my style that I think is cooler and more visually appealing for apparel, but still upholds that Drawfee brand. The Jacob horse is exactly what the name suggests. It's Jacob's attempt at drawing a horse in his awesome, wild, shapy style where he makes everything into little guys. And he has become a fan favorite as a character, even being turned into an adorable plushie. I mean, how could you not love something with that 2 eyes on the same side of the head face? It's adorable. But there's one characteristic that really stands out when I think of Jacob horse. That boy is long. So long he needs 6 stumpy legs to support himself. So I started thinking of this creature in the real world as some sort of cryptid. I imagined that the stories that people would tell about an encounter with it would get so exaggerated that it wouldn't just be a long noodle horse anymore, but it would be a horse of infinite length, like Jormungandr, the world snake. I hope I'm saying that right. I'm not the best with that whole old Norse pronunciation stuff. And I imagined that it would be a pretty terrifying creature to behold, a true force of nature, really. Which made me consider that maybe it wouldn't be just a cryptid that's some unknown animal wandering about doing normal animal stuff. Maybe it would be more like a kaiju, this huge beast of destruction that towers over people and buildings. So I went with a Godzilla-inspired design, with the Jacob horse standing above the skyline of a skyscraper-littered city, its body winding through the buildings and stretching back into infinity, giving the illusion that the creature can fly as it lifts its head and upper body off the ground. But like I said, I don't want this to just be a Jacob horse as he draws it. I want it to be my version of a Jacob horse, created in my style, so I exaggerated a few features like the ears and gave him a more mask-like face that adds that cute and creepy vibe that I'm always striving for. As well as adding a luscious mane, but in my shapy dreadlock style of rendering hair and fur. After I have the line work completed, I'll come in with my stippling brush to give the whole thing some relatively simplistic shading, because this is a shirt design, so you don't want any soft gradients, and you need to watch your color count for screen printing purposes. This just adds some patented flat depth and interesting texture to this otherwise very simplistic illustration, and helps it to further define the form of each element. But what is a Godzilla-inspired design without the epic power beam unleashing its radioactive might upon the world? And because of the whole mask angle, I didn't want the Jacob horse to have an open mouth, so I decided to give him Superman laser vision instead, emanating from the hollow eye holes of the mask. Man, I've been playing too much Hollow Knight, haven't I? This worked well as a shape element, breaking through the background border I established, making it interact with the world outside of the canvas. But speaking of the background rectangle, I wasn't really a huge fan of that blue I chose, so I decided to mess with the hue, brightness, and saturation until I found this nice desaturated purple that I felt matched the scene well, which I thought would pair well with a darker salmon orange that I could use for the beam and turn into a faded light source of sorts. So I decided to pick up that color on the buildings and hint at some window reflections with my stippling brush, and then added the purple color reflecting off the windows facing the opposite direction to add more depth and detail to the image. After the illustration was complete, it was time to move on to some text. I originally tried to do some hand lettering, blocking out the areas I wanted them to be in and giving it the old college try. But I gotta be fully transparent, I'm really not that good at hand lettering. I mean, my handwriting is atrocious. See? I can barely read most of that because it's from a while ago. There's a reason I write all my scripts on my phone instead. So I erased all of that and decided that I wasn't finished with the illustration yet. The Jacob horse needed to stand out from the buildings a bit more, and I felt like this dark desaturated red works well with my color scheme. And I also wanted a couple of cloud elements in there to give a better sense of scale for the image and break up the monotony of the background. With that finished, I moved the file over to my laptop and brought it into Illustrator. Because as a graphic design major, I'm much more comfortable working on typography in Illustrator than I am hand lettering. I knew I wanted to keep that playful, cartoony brand style with the text, and I also wanted it to interact with the illustration. So I decided to use the light beam as a jumping off point and add the text following its contours, using a bold black font for the Jacob on top and a more heavily designed font for the horse on the bottom, following the steeper curve and overlapping with the illustration's borders a bit to bring it to the foreground and help it jump out at you. And there you have it. My first design is completed and I like it. It's a little bit my style and a little bit Drawfee style. It's out there and interesting without being a lot and still maintaining that simplicity in its form. Plus, if you print it on white, it only uses 4 colors, and the stippling allows you to get gradients in while only using one solid color for the screen printer. I think I would personally happily rock this on a shirt, but y'all let me know if you think it's better than the original or not in the comments below. Anyhoodle, we have more good work to be done. Ain't no rest for the wicked. Let's see what we got next on the chopping block. Oh, here we go. You know, I actually like the font you used on this one, and I'm a fan of the baseball tee thing. That's nice. But it does have big I'm 13 and have $20 energy, so let's see if we can't fix that up a little bit. The first thing that I knew for sure was that I still wanted the coffee cup to be a part of this design, but I needed to modify it. So I slapped a big old Cyclops eye on there, just like the ones I use in my little red birds. Then I thought to myself, how can I make this more freaky for all the nasty draw freaks out there? So I figured, why not draw a little Drawfee freak in the cup? And roughed in a relatively generic figure in a somewhat suggestive pose, chilling out in the hot Drawfee bean water, with an open head that can have all sorts of inspired wild imagery spilling out. Like maybe one of those old giant spiral lollipops, some big old ink drops for the illustrators out there, my iconic little white flower, and the steam from that dirty bean water. And why not add the exposed brain in there too, just for good measure. So far I'm liking this image a lot. It's got the freakiness, it's got the Drawfee branding in there, it's got my style to it, but I don't think it's quite there yet. It still needs more. And as Drawfee is an art channel, it seemed only right to have the artist hand in there holding up the whole cup. With the base elements finished up, it's time to get to some detailing again with my stippling brush. I'll go over everything with some black shading, giving it a sort of semi-gloss effect by having bounce light wrap around the edges of each element. This helps to push a plastic texture for the elements that fits the theme of the design nicely while separating out the elements and adding depth to the image. But I realized after all of this that I forgot one very iconic part of the Drawfee logo, and that is the stylus. But I thought just having the stylus by itself wouldn't really fit in this design, so I decided to turn it into a parasol, like this character is really living it up in 1920s luxury inside this coffee cup. And once I decided there was just the right amount of too many elements added into this design, I could finally get around to adding some color. This illustration was just begging for more color than the first one because it feels very toy-like, so I added 4 base colors along with the black, 2 blues and 2 pinks that play together so nicely and help to make the imagination elements pop out from the otherwise mostly black and white design. But even that wasn't enough for me. I didn't think this design was framed very well. It was just sort of sprawling elements going each way. So I added a bright orange circular sun in the background to tie it all down, and then cut in some swirling clouds for that fantasy vibe, which were also in need of being colored with the bright pink because that pink and orange combo is always nice. From there, I took it back to Illustrator to further hone my typography skills. Honestly, it took a lot of tries to figure this one out. No matter what I tried, I just didn't like the way it turned out, until I finally landed on this grungy, nasty font that I aligned in a circular path around the image, making it appear as if it's being emitted from the orange sun in the center. Which is also why I colored it the same orange to help all your noodles make the connection easily. You know, the other design element of this original tee is actually fairly interesting. They have their text on the back pushed all the way up to the top, sitting right underneath the collar, which I think is actually fairly unique and cool. But I want to consolidate everything into one design for each shirt because, I don't know, rule of threes or something. So I thought I'd just take the word nasty from the back design and add it to mine, because then it still makes sense as a statement. Nasty draw freaks. How does he do it? And because I'm such a big brain, I didn't think about the fact that when I designed the illustration, anything going off screen would just be cut off for the design. No shit, huh? So now the steam plume is just cut in half at the top, and I need to create some reason for that to be the case. So why not add the text up there, underline it where the steam stops, and then super simply create the idea of a canvas border with just one corner. It's a bit lazy and simplistic, but honestly, I tried so many other things and they all looked way worse, so we're going with this one. It's not like, whoa, that's incredible, but it works. Or I mean, you tell me if you think so. Because that's design number 2 locked away. For some reason, to me, it's got sort of Nickelodeon meets 90s beach vibes, and I can't even explain why that is. But I think it's a pretty interesting and cohesive design with nice colors that I could see people digging. But just like before, let me know if you think it's better than the original in the comments down below. So I've given you 2 redesigns of existing merch to consider, and they've both been solid, but they're not really me or my style. I've been trying to stay about halfway between my style and the Drawfee branding. But for this final one, I'm thinking let me give you a completely original design, fully in my wheelhouse, based on a legendary Drawfee character from 5 years back. I love this character, and the Drawfee animated on this bit still makes me laugh unreasonably hard every single time I watch it. You know him, you love him, it's Worm Train! Another Jacob character I'm realizing, which comes across a little rude, but that's not the reason I picked it. I had a flash of inspiration and I needed to chase it. I love retro sci-fi, and with Worm Train, it was really easy to make the comparison with a Dune sandworm. So I thought it would be really cool to make a retro sci-fi poster design inspired piece for this one. I started by sketching out this tiny useless tunnel that Worm Train is known to travel through. Then I wanted to have Worm Train himself to be in a dynamic pose, pushing into the foreground as if it were running right past you. But after inking all the line work for this idea, I realized I made the worm too Dune, the pose was way too flat, and the perspective just wasn't that interesting. So everyone at home, delete your art. This is garbage. We're starting from scratch again and trying something completely different this time. I actually planned out the final product a little bit ahead of time, and if my plan is to work, I need to start with a very narrow vertical canvas. From there, I'll quickly sketch in the tunnel tower and the worm in a much better pose, wrapping through and around the tower with its head perched on the very top. I mean, look at that. That's real time right there. I knew right away when I started inking that I wanted to nail that texture on the skin of this creature and really emphasize the squatch and stretch effects as it wraps around the tower. So I used an exorbitant amount of converging lines in the corners where the worm bends to sell the perspective turns, which also coincidentally helped me lock in the beginning of the shading on this character. After that, I went in to draw all his adorably cartoonish little pizza slice feet, and then went back to redo most of the work I had just done because I realized I was inking on the same layer my sketch was on. It's always the stupid little things that you screw up, man. Then I went in and drew the background mountainous landscape and clouds, all pointing towards the top and center to help draw your eye to the one true worm. And inked the rest of the details like the slats on the railroad track and the bricks on our definitely super important tunnel tower. From there I got to placing Worm Train into the scene by adding some tufts of grass obscuring the edge of its form where it's touching the ground. Now I needed to decide on one of the most important steps. I had to choose a color for my scene. I knew I wanted this design to only need one color to print and have all the artwork just be black on top of that. That way, when it's printed on a black shirt, all that art can just be where the ink doesn't hit. It made it a really fun challenge and it's smart from a business standpoint. That's gold right there. So I started as I often do from a blue and then just tried out tons of different colors until I landed on one that I liked, which in this case was this nice desaturated olive green color that I think fit perfectly. Then it was just a matter of doing what I do, shading the heck out of it with a bunch of stippling to pull out all the contours and the scales along the worm's body and the stone on the tower he's perched on. But if I had to pick one favorite part to work on for this illustration, it was shading the grass field. It was a really fun challenge to figure out how to suggested grass using only vague stippling shadow lines, and in the end I think I achieved a really interesting effect. Then I went through to shade all the mountains in the background, making sure to have the gradients get darker towards the top and lighter at the bottom for that atmospheric effect you'd see looking at a distant mountain range. And the clouds above them, which only needed minimal shading to define their form and add a little extra fluffiness for good measure. Now we have our illustration complete, and this is where that planning ahead with the canvas size comes into play. Because I knew I wanted the illustration to only take up half of the design space so the other half could be taken up by the text. Like I said, I knew I wanted to go retro sci-fi, but I'm not the most knowledgeable about fonts or typography. So I started with a display font that I thought might work and edited it to make it more custom and interesting. But I quickly realized it wasn't giving me retro sci-fi at all, and I needed to do some research. After looking through fonts that have that retro sci-fi feel, I found one that I thought was perfect because it already looked like it was one long worm spelling out the text. So I edited it to connect the two lines of text together to further push its singular worminess. Not sure if I said that right, but I'm not doing it again. And also extended the T in train and turned it into an underline that's in the silhouette of the great one true worm train himself. Then I changed that text to the same green as the illustration and grabbed another font that's a little more basic and less display to create a transportation company logo to sit underneath, as if this were an advertisement for their brand new worm train. You see, I made it more sci-fi by using a 0 with the dash through it in place of the O. Big wrinkly brain over here. After I resized the logo and put it in its 20th from final position, I decided I needed a design element to sit between the logo and the title. And it only made sense to make that design element a train track going across the page. Then to finalize the design and tie everything together, I changed the background to black, added some more dashes cutting into the side of the 0, and connected the train tracks to the T in transportation to continue that continuous train motif. And there you have it. My fully original sci-fi worm train shirt design is complete. The other two designs were solid, but this design really does it for me. I think the illustration came out fantastic, and the graphic design elements really hit on this one for me. But as always, you let me know what you think of this piece down in the comments below. It doesn't have an original to compare it to, but you just let me know if you would rock this shirt, because I definitely think I would. So Drawfee peeps, if by a miracle you saw this video and by an even greater act of God you watched until this point, hit me up and I'll send you these designs to sell in your store free of charge. I mean, it's largely your IP after all. But hey, I've had one more thing I've wanted to say this whole time. Guys, just make the wavy lorem ipsum text over the orange shirt design that you designed on stream that one time. That design slaps and I would buy it in a heartbeat, no joke. And for everyone else, if you've had no idea what I've been talking about this entire video, then go check out Drawfee, they're great. If you like our content, you'll like them. And if you like this video, then go ahead and give me a like. Boom! What a smooth transition for a little CTA. Honestly though, because I wouldn't mind doing this again in a future video for a different channel and making a little series out of it. So let me know. Oh, I've had my leg crossed this entire time and it is falling asleep. I like literally can't feel it at all. And you know the drill. If you like me, you like the channel, and you want to help support me, the #1 thing that you can do is to subscribe. I really couldn't thank you enough if you did. It means the world to me. And with all that out of the way, and without further ado, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace. Jeez, hour-long take to do all of that. Me no speaky well today.
Thanks for watching.